Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for taking time from your busy schedules to participate in the Road to Ophthalmology Residency. I'm Dr. Stephanie Marioneaux, and I will be your moderator today. But before we get started, I always like to thank those who have worked so hard behind the scenes, and that would be our wonderful SNMA liaison, Temi Adeleke. She has done an amazing job on this title slide, and she has been so helpful in hosting the meeting. I also wanted to thank Cameron Matthews, the MD, JD, who is the CEO and founder of Tour for Diversity. And I want to thank you for inviting me to moderate and to sort of set up this panel of all-stars, okay? As I stated, I am Dr. Stephanie Marioneaux, and I'm also an ophthalmologist. I completed my college and my medical school at Harvard Medical School and Harvard College in Boston, Massachusetts, and I completed my residency in ophthalmology at the Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia, and I am currently in private practice in Chesapeake, Virginia. I have a panel of all-stars, and we're going to start out with Dr. Keith Carter. Dr. Keith Carter completed his medical school training at Purdue University, and then he completed, his undergraduate, was at Purdue University, and he completed his medical school at Indiana University. He then completed his ophthalmology residency at the University of Michigan, and he was then invited to complete an oculoplastics fellowship at the University of Iowa. He did such an amazing job. They asked him to stay, and he has been there ever since. He was there as the chair of residency selection or the director of residency training for over 14 years, and since 2006, he is the chair of the Department of Ophthalmology at the Iowa Health Sciences and Clinic, the hospitals and clinic rather, and the Iowa Medical School. He is also the first African-American president for the American Academy of Ophthalmology and also for the Association of University Professors of Ophthalmology. He is well known internationally and nationally. He's trained over 20 fellows in oculoplastics, and we are so honored to have Dr. Carter here. So we're going to give him a virtual round of applause. Our second all-star panelist is Dr. Leslie Jones. Dr. Jones is a graduate of University of Virginia. She completed her medical school and her ophthalmology residency at Howard University in Washington, D.C., and she completed her fellowship in glaucoma at the Wills Eye Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She also did an amazing job at Howard, so they asked her to come back, and she has been there ever since. She also was the director of residency training at Howard, and she has recently been elevated or promoted to the chair of the Department of Ophthalmology at Howard University and Howard Medical School, and she also serves as the director of glaucoma. She's been very involved in research. She was a Howard Hughes Fellow, and she is the glaucoma consultant for the National Eye Institute for the uveitis section. She's also involved in trying to identify biomarkers, genetic markers in African Americans who have glaucoma. So she has trained, Howard has trained most of the underrepresented minorities in ophthalmology, and we are so again, happy and honored to have Dr. Leslie Jones as one of our panelists. Let's give a virtual applause to Dr. Jones. Our third all-star panelist is Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis. Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis is a graduate of Duke University. She completed her medical school at University of Pittsburgh, and she completed her ophthalmology residency at UNC Chapel Hill. She completed her glaucoma fellowship at Yale, and she also did an outstanding job at Yale because they asked her to stay. And she was there for 9 years. Following that, she was at MCV in Richmond. And finally, she has come to University of Pennsylvania at Shea Eye Institute. She's been there, I think for over 20 years. She started in as part of residency training, which she did for many years, and she is now the director of glaucoma at University of Pennsylvania Shea Eye Institute. She is also the co-director of the Rab Venable program, which I hope all of you know, and she's going to discuss that a little bit later, but it has been instrumental in making sure that ophthalmologists are, underrepresented minorities, I should say, are prepared for ophthalmology residencies. She has received numerous honors, surgical clinical honors from the UPenn Ophthalmology Residence. She was a distinguished alumna from Yale. She's been a past president of JCAPO. She's had awards from WIO and AAO, and is also involved in identifying genetic markers for African Americans who have glaucoma. So again, we are very honored to have Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis. Thank you very much. And we'll get a nice virtual applause for Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis. Our last all-star panelist is Dr. Aaron Dotson. Dr. Dotson is a graduate of University of Texas, Dallas, where he majored in neurosciences and a minor in music, majoring in specifically classical piano and composition. He finished his medical school at the St. Louis Medical School, and he is currently a PGY3, which is a second-year ophthalmology resident at the University of Iowa, Dr. Keith Carter's program. And he is an aspiring cornea specialist. He has been very involved in Black men in white coats, and he's very optimistic that in his tenure in ophthalmology that he will see an increase in the underrepresented minorities. So let's give a virtual applause to Dr. Aaron Dotson. We are so honored, as I said, to have such an amazing panel. We're going to jump right into our questions. And I don't know if you want to remove the slides so that they can actually see the panelists a little bit better. We're going. Thank you so much, Temi. The first question is tell me, what is a typical day like in ophthalmology? And we're going to start out with Dr. Keith Carter, who's the chair of ophthalmology at Iowa. Tell us briefly, what's a typical day like for you?
Good evening, everyone. A typical day. I'm going to give you a little different perspective because I do a lot of administrative work. So let's say for today, I started off in the operating room with a trainee, and then I attended morning rounds on my phone. Then I interviewed 3 people for our fellowship. And then I listened to a dean candidate for the institution. And then I saw 2 patients in the clinic, and now I'm spending the evening with you. So that's a typical day, my typical day. Others will give you a more typical ophthalmology day.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis, tell us your typical day as director of glaucoma at UPenn Shea Eye Institute.
Well, I had a very busy day today, seeing glaucoma patients all day long. And my typical day, I have a consultative practice mostly, and I see probably 90% glaucoma patients, many of whom have had lasers or surgical treatment elsewhere before they come to see me. And so I spend my day really trying to sort out issues in terms of their glaucoma management, and also to address what is the #1 cause of preventable blindness in people of African descent. And so it's really been a mission for me to engage with my glaucoma patients to really try to do the best that I can for them in terms of preserving their vision. But I do clinical work as well as administrative, and I'm also busy surgically. So when the students are thinking about what they can do in ophthalmology, if you want to, focus on being a surgeon, part of having a busy clinical practice is having a busy surgical practice as well. And I think it's really a great way to cover sort of all interested bases and form really great relationships with patients. And that's what I love about glaucoma, because it's really a relationship-based subspecialty.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Leslie Jones, tell us a typical day as as chair of ophthalmology at Howard.
I would just say there are no typical days mainly because I was in clinic all day today, and I had a lot of glaucoma emergencies, and they were each and every one a unique situation. But like Edie, I am a glaucoma specialist. And so I spend my days with patients pretty much doing the same thing, sorting out different issues, planning surgical interventions, because usually by the time they're getting to me, it's time to operate. But what I love about being an academician is I get to train young people. So I always have either a fellow or resident that I am engaged in teaching with every day. That's very rewarding, keeps me on my toes. I have many administrative roles as well, and some time for research. So my days are very varied, but today was a patient care day.
All right, great. And I'm going to interject. As I said, I am an ophthalmologist in private practice. So a typical day for me, it's sort of like Leslie. It just depends. But typically, I see patients 4 days a week. and then I am in surgery 1 day a week. But the difference between private practice is that you have to generate all of your patients. You don't show up and expect that the patients are there. So I am very active in the community in which I live. I'm on the Prevent Blindness Board, I'm on the Town Bank Board, and I was elected by City Council to be on the governing body of the hospital where I live. There's only one hospital in my city, and that's the Chesapeake Regional Medical Center. They have a governing board. I was the chair of the governing board, and the CEO reported directly to me during my tenure as chair. So my days are very busy. I love my patients. I have such incredible relationships with them. I think that's the biggest gift that I have gotten from being in private practice, as well as the flexibility to do other things. So that is my typical day. How about you, Dr. Dotson, as an ophthalmology resident? Tell us your typical day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like our day-to-day kind of changes depending on which rotation we're on. I'm currently on my neuro-ophthalmology rotation, which is a lot of fun. I get to see a few patients throughout the day. I get to work with my attendings, my faculty and staff. After neuro-op, I'll spend time on pediatrics, and then I'll spend time with Dr. Carter on my oculoplastics rotation. Really looking forward to that. But you know, some days are a bit more clinic heavy. Other days we're spending a lot more time in the operating room. Tomorrow I actually have a full day of cataract surgery where we get to do our capsulorhexis for each and every patient at the PGY3 here. And then other times we are on call where we have to take calls throughout the night. Everyone's favorite thing throughout residency. I'm actually on call tomorrow. But, you know, I really enjoy residency for ophthalmology because you get to learn everything throughout the 3 to 4 years while you're in residency itself. And I feel like each stage is very exciting.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. All right. So what about underrepresented minorities? What is the status of them in ophthalmology? Dr. Edie Miller-Ellis, would you like to kick off and tell us about that?
Well, is it okay if I share my screens? I do have a couple of slides that we could use. Let's see.
Just make sure you keep it brief. We have lots of questions.
I will keep it brief. I'm just gonna, you know, it's easier to sometimes to show a slide
Pictures
than
worth
to try
1,000
to
words.
explain something.
Is she able to share her screen, Tammy?
Can you see it now?
No.
No. Okay, let's see. Okay, screen share. Okay, so it says host disabled screen sharing. I thought it said host enabled it before, but it says it's disabled.
Why don't you go forward and we can,
Okay.
would you want us to come back and
Yeah, why don't you come back? Because I think
we'll come back.
really, yeah.
Edie,
Okay.
you're co-host now. Just try one more time.
Try one more
Okay.
time.
Okay. Ah,
Great. We see.
all
Excellent.
right. So I have a slide here. And so this is actually from, so Dr. O'Reese Knight, who leads one of the RAB Venable programs called Pathway to Success, has really gone a long way in terms of getting information together regarding the numbers of ophthalmology residents. And so this particular slide about the ophthalmology workforce was in JAMA Ophthalmology. And I think what we're basically seeing here is looking at on the x-axis, the years from 2005 to 2014, with the y-axis being the percent of residents of various ethnicities. And if we look at those who are URM, or Black or Hispanic, I think that we can see that all of these are at less than 10% of the total resident population. And not only is it at less than 10%, but it's been fairly flat over that decade. And really what we're trying to do is introduce ophthalmology as a wonderful subspecialty to talented medical students and try to provide a foundation to help people become more successful matching in our subspecialty. Because, you know, we really should be better represented after all these years in competitive specialties such as this. And the RAB Venable Excellence in Ophthalmology program, you know, our focus is to increase the number of underrepresented minority ophthalmology residents, as well as in academic ophthalmology. And so we do have a program called the Pathway to Success, where there are several panels over the course of the year. But our big event is at the National Medical Association annual meeting, where students are invited to present their original research and then network and meet our members. But I think that I'm going to just make this quick and go to one of the slides here at the end, is that our goal is to encourage students to apply, to give them a more organized pathway to help move them through the application process. And of the students who applied to ophthalmology in 2020, of the 30 students who were RAD Venable participants, 25 of them matched. And in 2021-22, of the 32 students who applied to ophthalmology, 27 of them matched. And if we look at those who applied sort of not through RAD Venable and those who applied through RAD Venable, among Black applicants, 86% of RAD Venable participants versus 57% of those who weren't matched. And among Hispanics, 83% of those who participated versus 64% of those who did not were able to match in ophthalmology. So I think that between RAD Venable, and we'll hear more about the MOM program, that there's a great support structure out there to prepare all of you to be competitive applicants and improve the outcomes, and hopefully not have that line flat on the original graph, but have it going up in the future. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much, Edie, Dr. Miller. That was excellent information. How about the MOM program? Can Dr. Carter tell us a little bit about the AAO program to help underrepresented minorities?
Sure. So the MOM program, or the Minority Ophthalmology Mentoring Program, is a co-sponsored program by the American Academy of Ophthalmology and the Association of University Professors in Ophthalmology. And what we're doing there is trying to expose underrepresented students to ophthalmology, because a lot of times your medical schools really don't have us in the curriculum anymore. Primary care is a big monster in the curriculum nowadays. Not only do we want to expose you to the ophthalmology, but also to tell you what the field is like, to let you meet people who are doing it, to also pair you up with mentors so you can talk about not only ophthalmology. We're not so naive to think each one of you are going to go into ophthalmology, but at least it gives you a mentor to talk about your medical career, period. And that's something that most of our students that don't have that experience. And so that's a plus. We're also trying to make sure we help you in test preparation, interview, personal statement writing, everything you need, every element of the application. We're here to help you and coach you so you're a good competitive applicant. That's the goal. The goal is not to do any set-aside positions or anything like that. That will only put us further behind. We want us to compete just like everybody else is competing. You just need some coaching that you don't get, and the majority of students do get, and we just want to provide that for you. So that's what the MOM program is all about.
That sounds excellent. Thank you. Do you have anything special at Howard, Leslie, that you'd like to add?
Just that we do, I think, a very good job coaching and getting young medical students in the first year very interested about ophthalmology. We do things like have wet lab and cataract tools, microscope training. You know, they get a chance to get their hands in very early in our simulation center. And when you expose first year students to that aspect of it, I think they get very excited. I haven't topped one of our former program directors who actually had 10 students of African descent go into ophthalmology. This is Lois A. Young in 1968.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes,
But we have really moved from having 2 every year to having 5 or 6 people compete. And we definitely have been sending participants to RAD Venable and to the MOM program since these programs' inception. And so we just are endlessly rooting for our students. We get to know them very closely. We're a small department and a smaller medical school. And, you know, we just are endlessly coaching and cheering them on.
Oh, wonderful. That sounds great. How about you, Dr. Dotson, as a recent medical school graduate? Do you have anything quickly to add in terms of perhaps SNMA or other organizations that may have helped you get ready for ophthalmology?
Yes, indeed. So, I found ophthalmology kind of by accident. I did a random 2-week elective, and that's where the light bulb went off. I'm like, wait a minute, this is absolutely amazing. But my problem was that I didn't really have a lot of representation in my medical school, as well as through social media or even SNMA on a national standpoint. So after I got plugged into the NMA for Rab Venable, I made it my mission to be as visible as possible and just to share my story. I want for other members of the SNMA to look at me and say, well, I never considered ophthalmology, but Aaron makes it seem like it's a lot of fun. Why don't I do a rotation for that? I do plenty of different panels like the one this evening. I speak for quite a lot of the regional medical educational conferences. I try to attend AMEC as most as I can, and just to share people the great news about ophthalmology. So, I think that we have a lot of great efforts now, and I'm really hopeful for the future.
That sounds great. Wonderful. All right. Our next question is, what do the selection committees look like? We've got lots of heavy hitters here on the panel. So let's start with Dr. Leslie Jones. What are you specifically looking for in your ophthalmology residents?
Well, I think some of the things we pay the most attention to when we're looking at our applicants is their interviews performance. So what I think is so great about Pathways to Success is not just a forum for people to share research, but those things that help groom people with their interview preparation. I think that that's so important because cognitively, many students have all those great things we want to see. But when we're looking at the applicant on interview day, I think performance during clinical rotations is important. Letters of recommendation are important. But I think, above the cognitive things, and everyone always talks about, do you have cutoffs for specific tests? Now that USMLE Step 1 is pass fail, that goes away. But beyond that, we want to get a sense of who the applicant is and their dedication to excellence, their professionalism, their ethics. I think we get a sense of that when we interview. And I think one thing that's changed probably in interviews now versus maybe 14 years ago when I started out as a residency program director, we asked more situational or behavioral type questions to see, if someone can tell us how they've dealt with a challenging situation in their past or their leadership style. We ask more questions like that today than we have in the past.
That sounds great. How about you, Dr. Carter? What kind of questions are you asking? Or what are you looking for?
I like to get to know people. I like to hear the life story. I like to hear what shaped them, what helped develop their character, their sort of moral fiber. Of course, grades and rotation performances are good and letters of recommendations are good, but there's that personal statement, that story is very important to me. And then you have to, I think, get letters of recommendations from people who sort of know you. They will write a more personal recommendation versus a standard recommendation driven from a CV. So you got to make sure that person's willing to do that and share some of the experiences they saw of you that's going to make you a good doctor and a good resident. Those are very important things. The rest of it, you look like everybody else. You got to figure out what's going to make me look different than everybody else. And then you need to be confident in your interview. Not cocky, confident.
Sounds good. Excellent advice. How about you, Dr. Miller?
We've already heard some really interesting points about interview skills. I would like to just mention that since we're doing these interviews virtually, it is so much more important for applicants to be concise about the answers to questions. You don't have that much time to get your point across and to put your best foot forward. So you should really know the answer to, why do you want to do ophthalmology? Really, what led you to this? We call it the elevator speech. You don't really have very much time to make a great impression. And I know that I like to work with residents who have really good people skills. There are a lot of just brilliant students out there, but you want them to be able to talk to their peers, particularly talk to their patients and the staff, and then to engender trust among the patients. I mean, I think that's really important. We hear so much about how trust is paramount in terms of
Mhm.
patient care and eliminating health disparities, and how the trust in our community between patients and physicians, really needs some work. And I think that you really have to be able to do that. And then just have interests outside of medicine, be a well-rounded person, somebody who's fun to be around, I think is pretty important as well.
That sounds great. How about you, Dr. Dotson? You recently went through the application process. How was it?
Yeah, so I think things were a little bit different for me just because I applied and interviewed back in 2019. So this was before the COVID times,
COVID,
where I got to physically travel and go to
right.
my different interview places, which I had a lot of fun. Some people would prefer to do Zoom interviews, but I feel that at the end of the day, as cliche as it may sound, just be yourself, be your true, authentic self. Once you have an interview, that is more than half of the battle. We know that you're smart. We know that you're capable. We want to see, are you a good fit for our program? And do you think you're a good fit for the program as well? You may not enjoy every single place that you interview at, and that's okay. However, I really do feel confident that you will be able to find a program that you're going to enjoy and that you're going to be happy at. I mean, I'm here at Iowa. I'm very, very happy. If I could do it all over again, I'd say the same. I choose Iowa. So.
Oh, that sounds like a win. All right, Dr. Carter. Okay, I know when we were coming along, research was something that was strongly encouraged. Where could these applicants get research opportunities? How about Dr. Miller? What do you recommend?
A lot of students get their opportunities within their own institutions, going to their departments of ophthalmology, seeking out mentors close by. There's some schools that actually don't have ophthalmology departments, and so it makes it more of a challenge to do so. The National Eye Institute does have some programs there that students can participate in. One is called DIVRO, DIVRO, and it stands for Diversity in Vision Research and Ophthalmology. And if you just go to the National Eye Institute website and look that up, there's a whole programmatic announcement for that. And we have had some students in Rad Venable who've gone through that. There are also some departments who will advertise that they are accepting students to come in for research. The Rad Venable program doesn't directly provide research opportunities, but whenever we sort of within our network hear of programs that are inviting students, we certainly do pass the word out among the network to invite students to apply.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm going to ask Timmy if she put that information in the chat, or Dr. Miller, if you would, that would be wonderful. All right, what about, let's see, how about Dr. Carter? What opportunities are you aware of?
I would second that the most fruitful is right in your home institution if you have an eye department. It's easy to make connections there. You can ask residents who's interested and support student research. Some people support fellow and resident research more, but there's always some champion in the department that will help the medical student. Also, I think there's a champion for the MOM program in almost every ophthalmology department in the country now. That's a good contact person to ask. And then on the MOM website, there are certain institutions that are signed up to support medical student research. So I would use those 3 resources.
That sounds great. I will add something also in support of NEI. I think Dr. Miller, maybe Dr. Jones and I all did NEI research when we were medical students. I know I did it at the end of college, and then after the first summer of medical school, after the second summer of medical school. So I did 3 summers at NEI, and I really feel that the research opportunity that I got there, I even did have a publication, I thought really made a difference in my application, because so many of the people who wrote letters from me from NEI were well known amongst the residency selection participants. So I would strongly encourage those of you who are unable to get research opportunities at your school to follow exactly what Dr. Miller suggested. Get right on the website. Usually these summer programs are accepting applications now, and the deadline usually ends by November, December for the summer of 2023. So just try and get on it, try and get there. They have stipends, and we also listed Dr. Michael Chang, who is the director of the National Eye Institute and a personal friend of many of us here on the panel, who's just wonderful and very approachable. You can send an email and ask him if he is aware of some summer opportunities for research. And that name is also in the chat. All right, so what about letters of recommendation? Who should you ask? Dr. Jones, who do you recommend?
I definitely recommend someone that you have established a rapport with. You definitely want to try to seek out a mentor, and that's why these great programs like Mom and Champions at every ophthalmology program, you want to avail yourself of that because it's about relationships. I think Dr. Miller said it very well, everything in ophthalmology, relationships with our patients, but advancing your career has to do with establishing good relationships with the people you work with. So I would say research is so key. So if you have a research mentor, you cultivate that relationship, then that's someone you've actually done work with. And so to the extent that you've worked hard and followed through, I mean, that's generally a person that's very much going to be in your corner. I echo what Dr. Carter says when he's, you want to ask someone who does actually know you and isn't writing just from your CV, but, has some, not necessarily anecdotal, but some things to say about how hard you worked on a project with them or a difficult patient that you worked with them and, your thought processes and how you were excited, enthusiastic, that sort of thing. And be very open when you ask too, would you be interested, would you write a letter for me? A lot of people sidestep when they come to me like, do you think you would consider writing me? Just confidently say, would you please write a letter for me? Do you think that you will be able to speak positively about me and my interest in ophthalmology? And go from there.
I think that's excellent advice. And I will just say one personal experience that I had is that I really recommend that someone should read your letters of recommendation. You have waived the right to read them. So back in our day, we sent them to the registrar at the medical school. Have someone whom you trust review those letters because there may be a few little odd ones that may slip through. And if those are included in your main application, they may change the whole trajectory of your life. So I would suggest that you find someone to read them and to help select the ones that are most representative of you and the most positive letters and the strongest letters that you can get. Dr. Carter, do you have any final comments on letters of recommendation that maybe have not been said already? We've got such great comments from everyone.
I would just add that all your letters don't have to come from ophthalmology.
Great,
you may have
great
performed
advice.
well in other services, medicine, with surgery, whatever. Whoever can support you, remember, by the time you make a decision going to ophthalmology, you have a short window to perform well and get a letter of recommendation. When you're on medicine and surgery rotation, you're with them for months. And so you can find somebody who was impressed with your performance, use them also. I just need a good letter of recommendation. Doesn't have to be from ophthalmologist.
Sounds great. How about you, Dr. Dotson? This is all fresh in your memory. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so, things were also a little bit different for me as well. I think I was limited to just 3 letters of recommendation that were sent out to every single program. But I think the rules have changed a little now where you can actually tailor which programs you want to send your letter of recommendations to. So I say use that to your advantage. If you have someone that's writing you a letter who was an alum from a specific program, make sure that letter that's very well written gets sent to that program, et cetera. So just be smart on who you're asking, and yeah.
That sounds great. All right, we have 20 minutes left. So what kind of words of advice would you give our prospective applicants? We're going to start with Dr. Carter.
Advice. Boy, I've been giving advice all evening, I thought. The most important thing is to make sure you want to do ophthalmology first. Make sure that's something you want to do for the next 30 years of your life. Find a good mentor, somebody you can talk to throughout the process and you feel like they have your best interests at heart. Make use of these support groups that weren't here 20 years ago. I remember going through this, I didn't have any of this. People are asking me to help me, showing me the way. Take advantage of it. Don't be too proud to ask for help. The goal is to become a resident. And nobody's really going to check off how you became a resident. They're only going to give you pats on the back for becoming one. So my advice is, one, find support. Two, take advantage of the support. And three, be yourself and make sure you love ophthalmology.
Oh, great advice. Great advice. Thank you. How about Dr. Edie Miller? What advice can you give prospective residents?
Well, one, I mean, if you've decided that you want to pursue ophthalmology, do your research and then, go through the process. There may be a lot of people in your medical schools who will discourage you from applying. I think that we really have to hit on that, because I've heard so many stories from some of my peers who are in practice now about people who said, oh, you can't do this, oh, you shouldn't do it. If you're really committed to taking care of the underserved population, you would do primary care, when actually ophthalmology is primary care for the eyes. And vision is very important. And it's a life changer in terms of how people interact with the world, their independence, their self-confidence. And so you really are making a huge difference. So just if someone says to you that you're a sellout because you're not doing primary care, you tell them that you know the real deal, that without sight,
That's
you
exactly
can't
right.
do anything. And so,
That's exactly right.
so stick to it, and don't let them feel you guilty for doing a wonderful surgical subspecialty like ophthalmology.
I think that is excellent advice. In fact, I tell people many times, remember, the eyes lead the way. All right, Dr. Dotson, do you have any comments, any words of advice?
Yes, I would say for anyone who is on the call this evening, who is early in your medical school training, if you have an interest in ophthalmology, get involved within these programs. I would not have interviewed as well, and I would not, honestly, I don't think I would have matched if it wasn't for the Rab Venable program. I feel like many could say the same thing about the MOM program. So get involved as best as possible, continue to be yourself, fall in love with the specialty, and yeah, if you don't have a home program at your institution, reach out to other local institutions that are nearby. Reach out to us. We will help to facilitate you a mentor or someone. It can be done.
All right. And Dr. Jones, do you have words of advice?
Nothing better than what has been said.
Okay.
Be encouraged.
That sounds great. All right. Now, coming down to our final two questions. Would you choose ophthalmology again if you had the opportunity? Dr. Jones.
Absolutely, without hesitating. And it's so interesting, like Dr. Dotson, when I went to medical school, I don't think I'd even ever seen an ophthalmologist. I had no clue about it. I actually did research during summer, and I was interested in immunology as an undergraduate. I did immunology research at the National Eye Institute.
Wow.
And there were a couple fellows there that said, oh, come and check out surgery with me. And I went and I was like, oh my goodness, how come no one ever told me about it? So I too had sort of that aha moment. But I would not change my career in any shape or form as far as my specialty choice. I love it. I love my patients. I love all the learners that I've had the privilege of working with over the years. So it's been very gratifying.
Wonderful. How about you, Dr. Carter? Would you choose ophthalmology again?
Absolutely, I would choose it again and again and again. Ophthalmology has been good to me. The satisfaction you get from patients is unbelievable, because we restore sight. We do things to improve their vision, something that is tangible, they can see it and appreciate it. The hugs you get are real because people are happy. And I will say that I was fortunate in ophthalmology to have a great academic career where I got to touch base and mentor trainees who have gone on to do great things. And I think if you take the entire career, I wouldn't change my selection of ophthalmology at all. It's been good to me.
All right, wonderful. How about Dr. Miller? Would you recommend ophthalmology? Would you do it again?
I would do it all over again. I mean, I think that you need to realize that, the eyes are part of so many systemic disease entities. And what I found is that sometimes I have patients who don't show up to their primary care's office, but they'll come to see me because they want to make sure that their eyes are still healthy, that their glaucoma is under control, or they want to have their cataracts out, or something that actually the interface with you is the person that gets them back in to primary care so they can have their other their diabetes or their hypertension or other issues taken care of. And so, we save lives in many instances with some of the things that we see. And it's very gratifying, and the patients are extremely grateful for everything that you do for them. And they really appreciate how sometimes, you're the one that's detecting, that their diabetes is, not controlled, or that their hypertension is uncontrolled. And if not for you, they could have a very different health outcome overall. So, ophthalmology is very important sort of in the family of medicine.
And I would second that as well. I think that, as I tell my patients, when I examine you and I tell you that everything looks good, you need to rejoice, because the things that I am looking for are so terrible that you should be thankful that I didn't find the pituitary tumor. I didn't find the retinal detachment. I didn't find evidence of some, a terrible thoracic injury or something, that's going on in the brain, metastatic cancer. So when you hear everything looks good, clap your hands, because the eyes are the window to the soul, and we see many things that are manifestations of systemic diseases. So I want to underscore what Dr. Miller said. All right, Dr. Dotson, I know your chair is here listening. We're going to ask him to mute. You can tell us, would you choose ophthalmology again?
Absolutely, 100% yes. Ophtho is the perfect combination of outpatient medicine as well as surgery. You can go into academics and change so many people's lives, from your patients to your residents, or you can go into private practice and be an entrepreneur. You can go into industry, research. You can travel the world and do mission trips. I think that the list is endless. Take a look at all of us on this call here today. We are smiling. We are happy. We are genuinely happy because we love what we do. Not every single specialty is going to be like that. You look at the studies, who are the happiest individuals? Who is more than likely to pick their specialty again? Ophthalmology will almost always be close to, if not at the top. So yes, I would choose it again.
All right, Dr. Carter, you get a few points on that one as well. All right, so our final question is, what has been just really unexpected about ophthalmology? So if you were to, look at your life and you say, boy, as an ophthalmologist, I never thought that I would be able to. Dr. Edie Miller, you're going to kick it off. What do you think?
I never thought I'd be able to, I think do so many different things that, I didn't grow up in a family of medicine. I was the first doc in my family, and certainly I didn't know anything about ophthalmology. And I sort of envisioned, checking glasses, taking out cataracts, and not really knowing, how exciting it was both on a local and national level, kind of working with sort of new procedures, new medications. I actually just got back from El Salvador because there was a group of students that had won an engineering competition at Penn, trying to find different uses for these sort of, nano devices. And we sort of designed a glaucoma shunt implant out of it. And we've been working with it with animal studies, and we just did the first in human clinical trials. And so I never even dreamed that I'd be able to be part of a process of, designing a device and doing an animal trial, and then actually seeing it implanted in a human being. I never dreamed that. And so just the breadth of opportunities that are available are just incredible.
That sounds great. How about you, Dr. Carter? What is something
I'm gonna take you all the way back. What's unexpected about ophthalmology is that I got in. Okay, that was the unexpected part, because I had enough people telling me that I could not do it.
Yeah,
or
how
it
about
was
that?
too competitive, or it was this, and you will make a good this. I would tell you they just served as motivation. One of the reasons I went in ophthalmology, because they told me I couldn't get in, it was too competitive. So that was the unexpected to me in ophthalmology, that I got in.
All right. Wonderful. And we're happy you got in. All right. And how about Dr. Leslie Jones?
I'm going to take it back to not that far, Keith, but when I was a second year medical student, one of the alumni from the program and said, hey, every year I go on this mission trip to Haiti, and, I can't go this year. Why don't you go ahead and go? And I was like, well, you're a doctor. I'm a resident. Like, what are they going to do with me? And he said, go check it out. I went and the bug of international ophthalmology hit me. And for 20 years, I've gone back to Haiti, to Las Calvas, and I've gone many other places throughout the world. And it's just been amazing. And I have learned more, probably far more than I've ever taught on these trips. I've practicing in different environments. I don't know, it just kind of wakes you up, makes you pay attention to things that you may not always pay attention to. And uh, to detail, everything we're just handed for granted here. You've got to plan it and think about it when you go someplace else. And that bug just bit me. And I had no idea about that at all before going into ophthalmology. And I've enjoyed it immensely.
Wonderful. Well, I'll interject as well. And I can say that I also never expected in private practice that I would have, such a diverse career, that I would be invited to be a guest speaker at the World Ophthalmology Congress in Hong Kong, at the World Ophthalmology Conference in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in Vienna. And I co-chaired a joint session of the French Ophthalmological Society and the American Academy of Ophthalmology, and we conducted it, I'm bilingual in French, so we conducted it in French and in English. And never did I think I would be traveling the world as an ophthalmologist. I envisioned myself going to the office, seeing patients and going home. And I'm so thankful that that has never been my MO, even early on. As I said, as in private practice, you got to get out there and beat the bushes to get patients. And so that has been a blessing. The second thing is that I absolutely love my patients. I have such wonderful relationships with them. They inspire me. I hope that I inspire them. And when you look at my waiting room, it is so diverse that I'm quite sure if we were walking the streets of Virginia, I'm not sure many of us would even talk or feel like we had anything in common. So this wonderful union of ophthalmology has just been such an added addition and a dimension to my life that I feel really blessed to have had such wonderful opportunities and relationships with my patients. I think that has been one of the most unexpected things that I've had. And Dr. Dotson, you're obviously not an ophthalmologist yet, but I don't know if you want to say anything nicer about Dr. Carter's program. You got a few more minutes.
Well, so I'll just quickly say the one thing that I think was unexpected was, I wasn't expecting the amount of love and support that I received since deciding on day one that I wanted to do ophthalmology. I have so many wonderful mentors, people who have been looking out for me and people who will continue to look out for me for my entire career. And I will say that we truly are a family. Because it is so small, we have many people that are in high places who will continue just to be, good mentors and will continue to look out for you. So I'm appreciative of all the love and support, and I can't wait to continue doing that for others who are up and coming as well.
Wonderful. Well, I just want to take a moment. We have 6 minutes left. I don't know if there are any questions that came through the chat. I see one. If Dr. Jones, you could type in the organization that you go to Haiti with. There was a question regarding that. Were there any other questions in the chat, Temi, that you saw?
Yes. One person asked another one just came in, but are there physician scientists in training residency programs in ophthalmology?
I'll let Dr. Carter or Dr. Jones answer that.
The answer is yes. If that's your career path, there's definitely opportunities in residency to do that. We have MD, PhD applicants who you would think would have a future as a clinician scientist. So yes, there's training for that.
And I'll just add that there's absolutely a job for you at Howard when you finish.
I hear you. You might as well recruit while you can, right? Anything else, Temi?
Another question, does the medical school you attend carry a lot of weight when it comes to residency applications?
What do you guys think? You're the chairs here.
Well, I think
Dr.
many
Miller.
people have stated it on the call today that having a home program at your institution definitely helps. I mean, and one of our medical students looked at that and presented it at Rab Venable. I think she's still writing that up for a paper publication, but it helps. But there are all kinds of pathways to ophthalmology. and we'll talk about it. I had a program at Howard, but I never found it until I did research at the National Eye Institute, and I made my way back to looking for it. So there are many different pathways. You just seek and you will find.
Sounds great. Any other questions,
I would
Timmy?
just,
Oh, go ahead.
I would just add this, it doesn't hurt to come from a named medical school, but it's not a requirement.
Okay. Any other questions in the chat?
Nope. No more
Okay, all right, then we are 7:56. We have 4 minutes left. I'll do a brief summary. Basically, I want to thank all of our panelists. We had Dr. Keith Carter, who is the Department Chair of Ophthalmology in Iowa, Dr. Leslie Jones, who is the Chair of Ophthalmology at Howard University, Dr. Edie Miller, who is the Director of Glaucoma at the Shea Eyes Institute at UPenn, and Dr. Aaron Dotson, who is a fourth-year resident at the PGY3, second-year resident at the University of Iowa program, Dr. Carter's program. And I just want to thank all of the panelists. I want to thank Timmy, you did an excellent job, and we are rooting for you. We know that you are going to become an ophthalmologist. We know you have what it takes, and we appreciate all the help that you have provided for us today. And thank you, Dr. Matthews, for bringing all of us together in this panel. And we are very optimistic that those participants and anyone who sees it on YouTube will become inspired. You should contact us. We are happy to help you. We're going to put up a summary slide that has research opportunities and websites that we hope will be of interest. And we encourage you to take a picture of it so that you will be able to follow up on this. We also had information in the chat as well. Dr. Michael Chiang and NEI is the director of NEI. And we also, I think Dr. Leslie Jones mentioned the Friends of the Children of as Las Cajobas is the organization that she goes with in terms of her medical missions. So thank you all again. We wish you all the best in your pathway to the road to ophthalmology residency. This is being taped, so it will be on YouTube, the Tour for Diversity in Medicine. And we also encourage all the SNMA members to please reach out to your mentors so that you can begin your mock interview process. But we're 7:58. We're finishing 2 minutes early unless anyone else has any other closing remarks. All right, a warm thank you to all of you, and we really look forward to helping you in any way we can. We are reaching back, passing that baton to all of the future ophthalmologists. I'm Dr. Stephanie Marioneaux, and again, I want to thank all of you for participating.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.